All right, welcome back. Like we said earlier, our guest is an early years education leader with over 21 years of experience across the UK and Africa, and founder of Alpha Chains, which operates 18 childcare centers in the Greater London area, supported thousands of children, families, and educators through her work in safeguarding, training, and education leadership.
Good morning, Caroline.
Can you hear us? Caroline Kokwala, good morning. Welcome to Silverbird today. I don't know if you can hear us.
I can hear you clearly. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Oh, brilliant. It's a pleasure to be here again today. Thank you so much for having me.
All right.
It's so good to have you again, and thank you so much. We're having you from the UK today, and we hope that you'll join us soon so we can have you live on the show right here with us.
I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully, we should be in Nigeria by June, July. Our event is the 11th of July, so we're looking forward to coming in. Yes, definitely.
Okay, great. So let's get real quick into the conversation. From your experience, right, why is early childhood education, why is it very critical when we talk about protection and justice?
Almost. I think early years is so important that we get it right, in the sense that people assume early years is all about learning letters and numbers and stuff like that. And I think somebody mentioned that earlier, but definitely that's not the case. We're talking about children learning empathy, learning accountability, consistency, learning to share. And this is where the foundation starts from. So it's not until we get to adulthood that we start to have this conversation. We need to start to have the conversation now and at the stage of early years. So it's very, very, very important.
From the Grenadian bullying situation, I'm sure you watched the video and you've been following the story. How does early education shape a child's behavior? Because they say that the children form certain characters and behavior from their formative years, right up to that's where their character and the behavior is shaped. So how does early education sort of shape their behavior into understanding situation and awareness of things?
That's a very good question. But I'd like to point out that if a child understands no, immediately, I promise you, they understand accountability. They understand the sense of ownership. They understand responsibility. So because as parents and as carers, we just assume they don't understand any of those things. And as a result, we just leave that side of things. So based on what happened, that video was terrible. It was awful. I couldn't watch it. And it is the responsibility of both parents and the teachers and carers. As a society, we have unfortunately, and I say this with a full chest, it's so unfortunate that we've let the likes of resources, lack of resources in our schools and so on, determine how we manage the behavior of our children. And as a result, where you have donors, parents as donors to schools, and hence schools and school owners lack that confidence in having to chastise and confront bad behavior. So it's so important that we understand safeguarding at a very early age with our children and practice that with confidence as school owners and school practitioners and carers, and interpret and work in collaboration with parents to be able to ensure that this really works. And this is where, unfortunately, we've lacked. We're lacking as a society, and we need to really do something about it. Adulthood does not just happen. It doesn't just happen. It happens from when they're children. And if we don't get the hang of it when they're little at the early stage, we tend to lose them at adulthood.
All right, thank you so much, Caroline. That's well said. Now, talking about children, we understand that they are vulnerable and naturally trusting. So now to the adults, because you just mentioned responsibilities for teachers and other caregivers that they should take drastic steps in ensuring that they boost the confidence of a child. Now, looking at adults now, how can they recognize the signs when a child cannot fully express what is wrong?
So that's another very good question. As a society, and I say as a society because our culture, unfortunately, is one that literally dismisses children's language. They just assume you might be lying, you're not telling the truth. So for you to recognize if a child, for you to recognize if a child's telling the truth or not, first and foremost, you need to come with an active mindset, a mind that you're willing to listen, that you believe in the child. There's an awareness around us of what could happen, and you take action. So if you know the child well, you know the child, don't tell fibs or to tell lies and whatever. You take their word, you believe their word, and you then go in based on, if it's a school environment, based on your safeguarding policies and procedures, you then take action. You don't dismiss a child and tell them they're lying. You want them to gain your confidence because you're the only one they trust to be able to speak to. And if you can imagine, if you dismiss them from the onset, that just means I don't believe you, which is what we do within our culture. So it's that thing of like empowering them to trust you enough to that you believe the things they're saying to you. And that's what I would add in terms of when it comes to obviously children trusting us as adults and what adults should look out for.
The role of trained professionals in dealing with sensitive situations like this, we've seen quite a couple of situations that have kind of spiraled out of proportion. But what is the role of trained professionals once they're able to spot a situation and then handle that? What is their role in all of this?
So that's a really good question again. And this is something we don't have a lot of when it comes to Nigeria. So personally, here in the UK, we have, first and foremost, you go through your safeguarding policy. So if it's in a school environment, you go through your safeguarding policy. You have the likes of Warif that work with abused women and things like that. Again, what is it that the children are mirroring? What is it they're seeing? So first and foremost, your safeguarding policy is very key. And the safeguarding policy must have on it what actions should be taken. So, for example, what's the reporting process? What do you have to do? You don't ask leading questions to the children. You let the children tell you what they're going through or what they've been through, what happened to them. You obviously write that down so there's documentation to be followed. And as a result, from then on, you then act and speak to the right authorities after you've spoken to the child. The question I have is, do we have the right authorities in place? And secondly, do caregivers and even teachers and possibly school owners, do they know what's the process and procedures to follow? Because if they don't, it's so unfortunate. And also, because we have so many states, the policy in one state is different from the policy in another state. And I guess that's where people get confused. Practitioners get confused. What's the reporting process in Lagos? What's the reporting process in Abuja? And even when they're reported, what actions, genuinely, what do these people face? What actions do they face? What's the consequences of their actions, of the thing they've done? And because that's what will build the community and encourage the community of teachers and practitioners and caregivers and children to report cases next time. Are they shamed if your reports, because even here in the UK, sometimes as women, you might be shamed if you report something, and depending on what the caliber of the person you're reporting the case against. And I've seen so many situations in the news in Nigeria where people in authority are not chastised for their behavior. You know, so again, what confidence are you then giving the women, the children, the practitioners, if you're not chastising people for their bad behavior and there's no action to their bad behavior if reported?
Said. Now let's take a very practical, case study here. The incident with Simi and also the Igbenedion Education Center, all of the incidents that happened right there. Now, from your own analysis, what lessons should society take from this incident practically?
Let's carried away with the fact that we forget the fact that we're practitioners and we're professionals. When professionals have policies you adhere to, even here in the UK, you can't turn around and say to a child, I love you, you're brilliant, you're beautiful, you're this. And, there are languages that are acceptable within even the childcare industry. And I guess, whilst I don't know the case that well, from the little summary I have about the case, conversations were had, they just had conversations haphazardly, tweets going out haphazardly, and forgetting the fact that you are in a professional setting. And as a result, there's certain conversations that should not be heard. And for example, we don't befriend our parents on social media. You don't befriend any of your staff on social media as a school owner. None of my staff are my best friends on social media. I'm not linked to my staff on social media because that's not the policy. So, and that should be written in your policy as a society, as a community, that this is the way we act. This is the way we work in a professional setting. So if you ignore all of those signs, hence you have the likes of the conversation that went on Twitter that unfortunately got out of hand. So there's as community, as school owners and stuff, we need to have very clear boundaries set for our schools, for our teachers, our parents. Parents don't call you, they call the school. They don't call the school and the school owner privately, or call the class teacher privately, say, oh, my child's nappy is not changed. No, there's a policy, there's a procedure. The procedure is, if you have any complaint, you call the school office. So it starts with us changing the culture of our schools and the community understanding what's acceptable and what's not. That's where we start from. But it all starts with us. So we have to wake up and get up and say, look, from now on, this is what our policy is. You communicate that clearly to our parents, to our teachers, unfriend all of those parents on social media. So you're not in.
All right, I don't know if you can hear me.
I can hear you.
Okay, so just wrap up the conversation to bring to a close. Now, if you could implement 3 changes in Nigeria's early education system, what would it be?
Yes.
3 changes. If you are going to implement 3 changes now, if you have the right to implement policy, what would they be?
First and foremost, we need to have a clear one-line safeguarding policy across the country. That's the first thing. I know that's difficult, but guys, I keep saying this. If you have an invested interest like BVN, they changed it. So why can't we do that? There's no reason why we can't as a country. Number 2, train the staff. They need training. They need resources to be able to make a change and to make a difference. And empower communities. We need to work in collaboration with parents and teachers and school owners working together in collaboration. As a result, we would have incredible adults where from the onset at early year stages, we're consistent, we're aware of our surroundings, we have empathy. Lack of empathy is what has got us into the bullying stage. We don't have empathy. We're disconnected. Emotional intelligence, we're disconnected from that. So all of those things should be taught at the early stage, and that would help us into adulthood.
All right, so just to hit hard, what's that one red flag parents should never ignore? One red flag that parents should not ignore. Red flag.
Never. Yeah, one red flag is, because you know your child, always believe them. Always believe your child. Because you know your child, always believe your child. That's one thing I would say. Because as a result of the child communicating and parents not listening, that's what's led to our society as it is at the moment. What do you think a bully is looking for? Love, care, role model, respect. That's what they're looking for. Because they never had that when they were children. They were not listened to when they were children. As a result, they get into this adulthood stage and become what they've turned out to be. So all of us as a community are responsible.
Also, one word that defines child protection. One word.
Caring.
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 Okay.
Caring. Caring.
Thank you so much for joining in today. We hope to see you soon in the country. We expect to see you soon in the country so you can come with your project, your educational project for children, for girls, and also for women in the society.
Thank you so much for having me. Look forward to seeing you soon.
All right. Thank you so much, Caroline. It's really good that we hit the nail on the head. It was nice having you on the show. And of course, the most important thing is that we have to protect our children, seek the truth, and of course, you build schools that, you know, that have good systems and structures. The conversation of public versus private is another conversation on the hot burner now, because with the lack of infrastructures in a lot of public schools, it's very difficult for them to really monitor. But when it comes to private schools, we still have to ensure we have these checks and balances. But it's a much needed conversation.
Exactly.
All right, so take a break. When we come back, we have a couple of trending stories, and of course, we have our next guest coming in the building. So don't go anywhere.